Today, I am very excited to have a doctor in the house. And in these times of pandemics, luckily it's not a doctor that we need to talk about COVID. It is much more exciting. And we're not talking COVID because it's the most boring conversation to talk about. So we are going to talk to Dr. Nicole Apelian, who we've already laughed quite a lot. And I'm pretty sure for the next half an hour, there's going to be multiple laughs coming out. And as I'm such a kind human being, I'm going to throw her under the bus to start off straight away. And I'm going to throw her under the bus because when you read a little bit about Nicole, it makes you feel a little bit small because a herbalist, a mother, survival skills instructor, anthropologist, a biologist. Seriously, are you going to leave anything for anybody else, or is it all about you? So Nicole, first of all, thank you for stopping everybody else have a career because you've taken them all on yourself. And thank you for joining us. So out of all those careers that you're hogging, what one are you most proud of?
Oh, wow. Probably mother. I got to say,
you had to say that. You had to say that.
You have to say that, but it's true, raising kids in this environment, in this world and modern technology and the way that it's changing. I really feel like that's the most important one, passing things down to your kids and having them be real stewards of this world and having a passion so they can keep it going. I think that is the most important, but I'll pick one beside that. That's probably more interesting for y'all. I really feel like the work as an author and an herbalist and a wild food specialist, getting information out to people that they can utilize kind of on their own without the help of big pharma and all that that comes in from the other side. Sometimes I really feel like that's the thing that's been striking a chord with people so much. And just that connection with nature, really allowing people to reconnect with themselves, with their community, and just with the outside. I always look to the right because that's where my property is, right here. But it's I think that's really important, and especially in this crazy world.
Yeah, and as you look about your CV that probably takes over 25 pages, it's probably a book as you go through everything. There's definitely a theme and a thread that carries it through. And you started by saying that about motherhood, which is the ability to pass on information. But again, how you described it was really powerful to me, was not doing it for somebody else, but giving them the skills and the insight to do it for themselves. They don't have to rely on something else. That's a really, really cool way of looking at the world.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You really put it well. It's all about self-reliance. And while we can count on other people, which is important to have people to count on, you really need to be able to move through life in a way that you can self-satisfy yourself. You can be connected, and you have the sort of skills and tools at your disposal in order to live like a happy, purposeful life, which is really important for everybody.
Yeah, we were talking before, and again, I'm fascinated by how the world is basically going back to something that you're an absolute expert in, which is the Bushman. And we started there. We've tried to prove it all wrong. We tried to do it ourselves, and now we're going, oops, maybe we should have spent a bit more time thinking and listening to the Bushman. So tell me about your experience of the Bushman, and if you have to pick out sort of the 2 or 3 lessons that you learned in all your time there that you apply on a day-to-day basis, what would they be?
Oh, that's a great question. So lessons, I've learned so many I've learned so many lessons from living with, spending time with the San Bushmen and this community that I'm so tied to in Western Botswana. A couple lessons that I pull out. One is timelessness. I really feel like they have the concept of timelessness just so well tuned in. I mean, there's no clock. They don't have watches. There's a great story that sort of ties that in. About a decade ago, I was there with my friend John Young, who's a great tracker. And we were sitting there, and he sort of casually, we were talking in a circle with some of the Bushman elders. And he casually pulled out just a stopwatch and glanced at it and put it back in his pocket. And one of the elder medicine men, Hanama, said to him, he said, "John, is that a timepiece?" And John said, "Yes, it is." And he said, "I don't like this." And very curiously, John asked, "Why?" And he said, "Because every time one of you looks at one of those, the next thing you do is rude." And I thought, oh my gosh, that's it. It pulls you out of the present moment. Imagine you're at a dinner, someone looks at their cell phone, you're no longer talking to the person or in that conversation in the now with the person you're talking with. You have been thrown out of it and you're thinking about what you need to do next, this other conversation, you're done for. And I thought that little comment was so huge, and that it really personifies a lot of what's going on in society, right? We're getting pulled out of our present moment, and being out of the present moment, not living in the now, really affects people. One of the things that makes people the happiest is living in the present moment. And that's part of why I love skills, because while you're making a basket, or while you're hunting an animal, or fishing, or tracking, or building a shelter, all you are thinking about, you can't be anywhere else. It's not like you don't learn from your past or you forget about the future, but being in the now is really key. And I feel that is such a huge lesson. That little example of timelessness really lends itself to this huge lesson that we can all take home about what it means to be present in our lives.
I love that story. I had one when I first went into the bush. I was 18, and I had my watch on, and the guide said, "Take your watch off." And I said, "Why?" He goes, "Well, time is the enemy." That was the one thing that really hit me. But also, it was interesting. I was late. Had a meeting this afternoon. I rocked up half an hour late, and I obviously profusely apologized for being late. And they said, "What happened?" I said, "I got lost in a mountain." And I got lost because of exactly what you said, because I was present in the hike, and you sort of start moving, taking it, and then suddenly I'm going, "Oh crap! I've gone a little bit further, a little bit in the wrong direction." And but my question to you, because again, we obviously talk about the outdoors, and we're an outdoor. This is an outdoor channel, outdoor podcast, but also the outdoors is the indoors in a way, because everything we can learn in the outdoors, like you said, you can apply in every part of your life. So I'm just fascinated now bringing that lesson from the Bushman into you as a mother.
It is a question of how do I
that methodology or that thinking around presence?
That's a great question. So how do you translate these lessons to your children, which is so important? It's another lesson, first of all, that ties into another lesson I've learned from this community of San Bushmen. And it's that parents are the worst teachers, right, to your children. They don't teach their children at all. The uncles, the aunties, the grandmothers, the grandfathers, they teach their children. Their only job is to love their children. That's it. They will teach and discipline other people's children, their nephews, their nieces, their grandnieces, their grandbabies, but they will never discipline, and they will never teach their kids. Now, obviously in our society, that's harder, right? It's harder to just not discipline or not teach your children. I try to teach by example, because they don't really listen when you're just talking, especially to you as a parent, even if you're a great parent. It's they hear what you're saying if you're in conversation, but that sort of direct, "Hey, you need to do this," if most kids are going to push back in some way on that. So how do you bring those lessons home into the living in the present moment? Getting outside every day, making sure that, my kids love going for long walks and just being outside. We're very lucky. We live on a property with hundreds of acres behind it, so we can go for, hours and hours on end and not see people. Not everyone has that sort of opportunity, but even going to a park and finding a sit spot that will, place that you go the changes, and going back to the same place over and over, or being on your porch if you live in a city, and going to that same place every day allows you to see sort of the changes in nature. Don't bring your phone, leave it at home. That's one way that we really are able to bring in the present moment and also notice changes through the seasons. And the other way is gratitude. Every night we, sit around and have dinner, and everyone gives a gratitude. So sometimes when you have teenagers, you might have one that doesn't love giving a gratitude, but something comes out, right? But then you hear it in other places. You hear it when they're with other people. Those lessons really do translate, even if they're difficult to do in the moment. And for me, giving gratitude really does keep me in the present. It's just, even if I'm having a crappy day, which we all have, right?
Yep.
Being able to sit there and say, all right, I'm thankful for this. And it's something external, but for some reason, giving thanks for something external causes this internal shift, and doesn't mean there are bad things that happen. It just means that you're grateful for the things that are good. And that can really cause a change in attitude, which especially now in these times is, I think, especially important. So those are a couple of ways that I bring these lessons home to my kids. And the other way is making sure that they have people that aren't me to talk to and to teach them. We go to a lot of skills gatherings. This year's been a little odd with COVID, but normally, they've grown up going to gatherings where they have all of these other people to teach them and to learn from and whom they can connect with. And that's been a really positive thing, is having alternative role models for them as well.
So what you've talked a lot about there is the community. It's about but having that presence and stuff and the gratitude and actually being a community and a family for dinner, which is something very difficult to do in some of the things that you've achieved in your life. Obviously 2 seasons on alone, and one there was no community for 57 days. It was me, myself and I. So talk me through. So obviously you've got the experience of the San, which is all around community, which is uncles and aunts and all that kind of stuff, and then you've got the experience of 57 days on your own. The mental part of it must have been harder than the actual physical part, surely.
I would say for most people, the mental part is the hardest part about a show like Alone. Obviously there's cold and hypothermia and hunger and things along those lines. But, if you can deal with all of those, really what tends to throw people off often, I'd say men more so than women, really just looking at the statistics of Alone over the years, men seem to have a harder time of being alone by themselves. And not all of them, obviously. I'm not trying to do a men versus women thing. I just think that we are brought up in a way that we're able to deal with. We're taught to deal with our emotions in a better way, changing in society, and by bringing up boys in a way that they're able to speak about things openly. But being alone is very different. But that's important. I think a healthy culture, if you look at culture, is connection with yourself, community, and nature. And that connection with yourself, I think everyone should be alone. No phone, no social media, no one else. Just try being alone. I'm not saying do it for 2 months. That's extreme. Most people can't handle that or don't need to do that. But people do 4-day vision quests alone and have really huge life changes, really change internally. And I think that nowadays also our kids don't get bored, right? If we're talking about ourselves and our kids, we're always fiddling with something. I remember as a kid, we didn't grow up with TV. Obviously we didn't have cell phones. We had the landline that, we had 3 teenage girls. So it was always busy. We didn't have these sorts of distractions that we have nowadays. So we had a lot of time to be bored. And that boredom, quote unquote, really breeds things like creativity. And creativity is so important. So to be able to get out of your head and have imagination is key. So I think that spending time alone is really important for people because it does connect them to themselves. You need that connection instead of just distracting yourself all the time. And I'm really bringing social media into this right now because I think it's such a big distraction for people. And it's really can be quite harmful because there's so many people sort of behind the scenes manipulating what you see. And that's caused a lot of divisiveness, especially like in our country. But getting back to sort of the outdoors, that time being by myself, I was in the present moment again. And it's all about like, do I have enough firewood? Am I going to be warm tonight? Is my shelter thick enough? Add more, boughs to my bed to stay warm. Do I have enough food? Do I have enough fish traps set? What is going on in those sort of things? Do I have enough, tinder for fire? Do I need to go collect more? So you're really looking at, fire, shelter, water, food, your basics there, and making sure that you're medically okay too. So, living in that kind of moment, I think part of what got me through is that I knew I was coming back to my family. It's not like it was a never ending sort of open-ended thing. I knew at some point it would end and I would see my family again. But I really liked being alone for those 2 months. Not everybody does, but I had a blast. I thought it was the best thing ever. I had no responsibilities. I had no to-do list other than things that I just needed to keep myself safe and warm and fed. And to me, it was an amazing experience and really brought home the fact that I was pretty solidified and that I had peace and joy in my heart, and I dealt with a lot of the trauma that I'd had. Anything you haven't dealt with bubbles up. And, new stuff bubbles up all the time, but, you just have to keep dealing with it over and over. None of it stops. But being outside is super healing and is a really good way to sort of, make that connection with yourself and keep it strong.
And I'm fascinated, obviously, you had a pretty unexpected turn in a few years ago, and you mentioned there about keeping yourself healthy. And obviously with your herbalist and all that, I'm fascinated by in that moment where you've got your basics to do, of which food is something, but then you're dealing with a really horrific, potentially really not a nice life disease. And you having to manage all that as well. How and I'm adding another little bit into there because obviously that's something that you need to cope with. But I love the fact you talked previously around creativity. Like when you have that time, you can be more creative. So how did you balance the two things of being alone, creativity and looking after your health?
Yeah. So for those people listening who don't know, I have multiple sclerosis and I've had it for over 20 years. And I used to not be able to walk 20 years ago. I was really, really down and out for a few years. And through diet and, herbal medicine, I've been able to pull myself out of that. And yeah, on season 5 of Alone, I had a really bad MS attack. And that was due actually, they didn't show it, but it was actually due to a vaccine I was given at base camp. So it was sort of an externally triggered attack. So it was nothing that I was doing because really, like on Alone season 2, when I was out there for so long, being in the wild and eating, fish and wild foods and being outdoors is the healthiest thing I ever could do for being, having MS, right? It's a great place to be. You're only eating the things that you're supposed to. You're in fresh air. You're in nature. So I felt fantastic. And I was going into season 5 expecting the same thing. Going in with I didn't really go into season 2 to win. Like that was never on my head. It was just for an experience, which turned out to be a great experience. Season 5, I went in and thought, oh, all right, I'm going to go in and to win this thing. Like, why not? Right. Let's go with a different perspective rather than just enjoying the ride. And, but all of a sudden, my health took a turn because of that vaccine, and it was so unexpected. And it was a long road home after that, really. I mean, it took months to walk properly again and a year before I really was completely on my feet, but did it all naturally again. So, nature can heal. So, but going into it originally, having MS in season 2, going into this journey, leaving my family, I do get asked often, why would you do that to yourself? I think there's a gift in being uncomfortable. I learn a lot when we go through discomfort, and we really also just have realized how much we do have in our modern lives that we're so lucky for. But I also just enjoy being outside, and I knew that I could do it. And I wanted to take on that challenge because at the time in season 2, we were the first season that had women and on Alone. And I really felt like this gets back to our original conversation about being a mom, right? And being a role model. I really felt like there was a lack of role models for boys and girls to see that women, really can do this outdoor stuff just as well as men can. Obviously, we have different strengths and things like that. And physically, we have differences. But I really wanted to be that role model for on survival TV because it was such a great medium to be able to show people that we all can do this. And it's something that's in all of us. And we all used to do it. I mean, we all used to be, right? The San Bushmen are collective and still are living today. And they do it every day. So I wanted to be able to get that out to people. And also to prove a little bit to myself that, all of this that I've been talking about and doing for my whole life, that it was something that I personally could do as well, with or without MS.
Yeah, it's an amazing. Obviously, we'll share all the links to the work that you do for other individuals with MS and the herbal approach and stuff. So just to a complete novice, how would you describe your view of herbal medicine and herbal eating? Just how would you what's your sales pitch to it?
Well, really, it's going back to how we used to be. This is going on for tens of thousands of years. For tens of thousands of years, we ate what we were supposed to be eating. We didn't have processed foods. We didn't have, all of these things that we put in our bodies now that's unnatural. We weren't doing that in the past. Herbal medicine has been used for tens of thousands of years. It's not like this new gizmo that we're looking at. It's something that we've relied on pretty well. I'm not anti-modern medicine. I mean, I don't want to put across that, if there's, if I need surgery, I'm going to go in and have surgery, right? If I feel that it's necessary. I'm not doing that on myself. But if we're looking at herbal medicine, there's so much that we can do from the things that grow around us that we can utilize that's natural, have very few side effects that a lot of modern medicine has. And that really, it's also free, right? I mean, this stuff is growing. Obviously, not everyone's going to make their own tinctures, and that's why I have an online apothecary, so people can access these things, that some of which are maybe more difficult to access, medicinal mushrooms and things along that lines. But herbalism is something that it's been longstanding. It's been used and really tested, and for me, it's the only thing that has worked well. I rely on it so much. And when I spend time with the San Bushmen, I mean, they look at their world like their grocery store and their pharmacy. That's what they're looking at when they look out there at their front door, if you want to call it, right? So I really brought that home, and I look at my land. I look at that. There's my grocery store and my pharmacy. And, our cells are really designed. If I go out in the woods, I always snack my way through the woods, or have one of my kids go pick us a salad for dinner from the woods. And, our cells are designed to uptake those nutrients really well, because that's the biology of it, right? I mean, evolution doesn't happen very quickly if we're looking at the evolution of humans. We've only brought agriculture in pretty recently. We've only brought in processed foods pretty recently. So our bodies are really designed to take in real food, and that makes such a difference in our everyday health, both mental and physical.
And you got another opportunity to test that out in Surviving the Stone Age, with a mutual We Get Outdoors friend called Matt, about Surviving the Stone Age.
Oh, you know Matt? Yeah, I just did a TV show with him. He's great. It's out right now.
So tell us a little bit. Give us a little 30-second sales pitch or elevator pitch on Surviving the Stone Age for those people who haven't heard of it before.
Yeah, Surviving the Stone Age is actually out right now on UK Channel 4. We're hoping it'll come to the States and be bought up by a network here as well. It's a 3-part documentary miniseries on what it was like to have lived in the European Stone Age. And the nice thing is, it was 8 people, only a couple of whom I didn't know beforehand. And 8 of us, 4 men, 4 women, really going back in time, and all of our equipment, all of everything we used, everything we made, everything we brought with us was all made only Stone Age, making, trapping line and fishing line, all by hand from fibers that I collected. It's a lot of work. All your bone gorges and your atlatls, etc. So, not to mention the clothing. But we really did live like we would have in the European Stone Age for a month in Bulgaria. And it was a wonderful sort of experiment, a Stone Age experiment of what it would have been like to have lived then. And, all 8 of us teach sort of Stone Age technology and skills, and we're all sort of at the top of our game in our fields. There's plenty of other people who are too, but, we were the 8 that went in for this particular show. And it was really nice because you get 8 people together, very different than a show like Alone, where you're only reliant on yourself. And, there could have been a lot of friction and egos, but there wasn't. There really 8 of us worked together, and we all knew that going in, we could learn from 7 other really incredible people. We all had our skill set. We laughed a lot, but we, each of us does deep dives into different things. So it was such a great learning opportunity too. And I've only seen the first episode so far, and the second one is out. I get to download it today to watch. So, but the cinematography is beautiful. The focus really isn't on drama. It's not on, drama that happened between people. It's all about the skills and what it would have been like to have lived then, which is super interesting, because I find that a lot of it's not a reality show, it's a documentary. So that's the difference. A lot of reality shows, other than something like Alone, where you are alone and there's no film crew. We self-filmed it all. Really go for the drama between the people, which I don't find that interesting. I really find the aspects of the skills to be the most interesting piece. And so I thoroughly enjoyed my time in Bulgaria. Mance and the rest of the crew, Matt Graham and on the walls, Naomi and Dan and Kaspar and Teresa. It was a fabulous group, and it was just an honor to be able to spend that month with them. But watch it, UK Channel 4. It's a brilliant show, and it's about to get, I think, put out in French and German as well. So as far as translations go, it's really good.
Very, very cool. I can't wait to watch it, and I know we're gonna have to wrap up because I know you've got a booking to go and watch it yourself, but. Before we go, I think it's interesting on our Facebook group. We had a debate recently around hiking on your own, and it's very interesting talking to you and getting your views of being your own. But just I've asked lots of questions and I've given you no time to talk about anything that you wanted to talk about. So I'm going to give you, because I'm a kind, well brought up British human being, I'm going to give you space now to wrap up really by telling our audience anything that you really want to tell them.
Okay. Well, first of all, totally hike on your own. Why would you not? Just carry a good knife and a tourniquet. Like that's it. Those are the two things you gotta have in your pocket. And I always carry signaling equipment, and I have this whole emergency EDC that I have around my water bottle, but I just carry with me when I'm by myself, so that no one has to rescue me. I can rescue myself, and that's pretty easy. So, but let's see, what do I want to say? I think, there's so many aspects of being outdoors and why it's important and why we need to still connect to nature and why we really almost need to go back to our old value systems. And a lot of that, I write blogs on my website, NicoleApelian.com. I have a couple books out. My Herbal Remedies book is, if you really want to learn, even if you're a novice or advanced, the Herbal Remedies book, I actually have it here, The Lost Book of Herbal Remedies, is a fantastic book for just learning about what the plants can do to you, and while having a good relationship with them. And I'm writing a wild foods book right now that's going to be out in the spring on wild edibles. So I'm really excited about that. It's going to be a pretty dense book as well, like the Herbal Remedy book. It's going to be very, very complete. So I would say just hop on my website. I have my books there. I have a lot of information, and I'm on, I am on social media, but you kind of have to be nowadays. But, I don't know if I have any sort of great words of wisdom to part with, but I do write a lot, and I really do spend time on my blogs to really help people who are having trouble connect with themselves. And then lastly, for anyone that has an autoimmune illness or MS, I do have a great section on my website. It's under managing what I do every day to manage MS. And there's a lot, there really is. But I think it's really helpful for people. I got tens and tens of thousands of emails after Alone saying, how do I do it? So I put it into a blog, and it's there for everybody to access so that they can, see what works for them. So, but I'm really grateful for your time today, and it's been a lot of fun. It's nice to hear someone from, I know you're British, but who lives in South Africa, because Southern Africa has really been my second home for a long time. All the years I've spent in Botswana, I've been working there since 1995, so it's really a second home to me.
Southern Africa's home. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for your sharing, inspiration, and again your ability to connect various parts of individuality, community, nature, the past and the present into one. It is a very unique skill that not many people have, and you have it in spades. So many, many thanks for your time.
Oh, thank you so much. Lovely talking with you today.